Hello and welcome along to Mondo Chelloveck Movies. My name is John, and this video is going to be what I've watched in the month of December 2021 and January 2022. So in December 2021, first up I watched Halloween 3. Now this is the Scream Factory 4K and it looks absolutely spectacular. If you're thinking about getting these movies on 4K, the Halloween ones, go and get them. They are absolutely amazing. So as everybody knows, with my cinema trip to see this at the Pictures and being totally disgusted by the fact that Michael Myers isn't in this, I didn't give this film a time of day. But my good friend Keith from Euphoria Pictures, linked down below, he gave me the Blu Ray and I did want to watch it actually, so I watched it and I took it as just as another horror movie and I had a great time with it. Yes, it's not a Halloween movie, but I've laid those demons to rest. And if you ever want to see the Halloween movies in the best condition and the best way that you can ever see them, do get these Scream Factory ones. And like I say, these hard box editions, you get reversible art, it's just everything, and you get all the things that you could ever want to do. The special features are just immense. So that's a big shout out to Scream Factory actually for releasing the definitive, for me, version of Halloween. And I can't wait for Scream Factory to release the rest of these on 4K in Halloween this year or thereabouts. So that's Halloween 3. So in December, my good friend John Hall came over with a bunch of movies and he decided to get stuck into them. The first one I watched was Tower of Evil. Now this one reminds me of a Hammer movie, but it's not a Hammer movie. This is released by Scorpion Releasing. It's region free as well, although it is a US release. And the slipcover on here, I just think it's just a work of art. I just love these sort of really, I wouldn't say they're tacky. I wouldn't say they're tacky at all. But they've got this sort of really kind of low budget feel to them. But I just like that presentation. I would take this over any modern day cover, because I think modern day covers usually, especially blockbusters, are pretty boring to say the least. So for me, but this film looked really good, and I tell you what, it's a really good actually. This haunted, or is it haunted place in it's like an island, like a sort of you can see there's a tower on an island, and these go there and they get stuck on this island. It's very British as well. There's a lot of British stars in here, and I do recommend you get this. And I think Network released it over here, and I saw it the other day in HMV, so it's available. I don't know what the print's like, but the print, if it's anything like the print on here, it's absolutely stunning. So that's highly recommended by me. That's Tower of Evil. Next up again from my good friend John Hall, we watched Chocolate. Now this movie, it's a martial arts movie, and it's got a bit of a difference actually, because this young girl here, she's got some kind of condition, and she's quite a distance from the real world, and people just don't understand or anything like that. But what she does is she watches martial arts movies, and she's obsessed by them. And what she does, she learns all these moves from martial arts films, all the Jackie Chan, Bruce Lee, all that type of thing. So what she does is she goes out, I can't tell you too much about why she does this for the spoiler story, but she went out on a sort of a bit of a rampage, and it's got some really good set pieces in here. And there's one fight that takes place in a sort of butchers with pigs' heads and stuff like that. And I tell you what, they're throwing knives around and sort of meat cleavers, and it looks as if they're throwing them at each other, and they're like holding boards of wood up and they're sticking in the boards of wood. I think it looks pretty real. It doesn't look like there's any CGI in here, and it's got some great action as well. Reminds me of Jackie Chan. They've got a fight on here when they're fighting on the outside of a building, and they're kind of going up and down these like staircases on the outside of these buildings, and they're falling off and land on their heads and all that type of thing. And this young girl here was amazing doing her martial arts on here. I think there's a sequel to this as well, but this is highly recommended. It's a UK release as well. So if you can see it, probably in the sort of HMV or CAX, you'll get it from here. But me and Deborah had a great time with this, and it's quite unexpected, the whole storyline. It was different to the usual storyline you see in one of these sort of revenge martial arts movies. So that's Chocolate. Keeping in the martial arts theme, next up we watched Lady Snowblood. Now this is on the Criterion label. You do actually get the second film, Lady Snowblood, Love Song of Vengeance, which we will watch, but we haven't watched it yet. So I watched this with Devon and I said, look, this is going to be a little bit more of a different, it's not particularly martial arts, it's more sword play, especially with samurai swords. So I said, expect some blood. So she was a bit, ooh, but anyway, well, she got through it, and she did admit that this movie looks spectacular. And I tell you what, as everyone knows, Kill Bill is highly influenced by this movie. So Quentin Tarantino has really took a lot from these movies, and you can see all the tropes that he's put into his films in here. But I'm not saying I do like Kill Bill and Kill Bill 2. I think they're great films, but this one here, I've got to say that this is the real deal. This is available on Arrow, although this version here, the print on here, this is the US version on Region A. The print on here is astounding. The colours on here are just amazing, as you would expect from every Criterion release. I don't think this has been released in the UK by Criterion, but if you want it, you can get it on the Arrow. They've got the two versions on the disc as well. But highly recommended, and Deborah had a good time with it. So I'm hoping that I can get her into a little bit more extreme stuff. Next of all, I'm trying to get her into sort of Shogun Assassin and things like that. This is like the next step up. I don't think she'll get the story of Ricky though, but you never know. So that's Lady Snowblood. So next up I watched Halloween 4. Now what I did with these movies is I just watched them back to back. I had them all in the set, so I thought, right, I'm just going to get into them. And I can't remember anything about this one. I remember little bits about it, but practically nothing. It was like watching a new movie. So what I'm going to do with these movies is I'm going to do a bit of a ranking. I'm going to do a sort of video about the Halloween 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. Now what I was doing was I was on a real Halloween kick, and I hadn't watched this movie for a long time. Can't remember practically anything about it. The print on here is absolutely stunning. It's not the greatest Halloween movie, but I do like it. It's a bit like Friday the 13th. Sometimes you get a movie and it's a bit ropey, or you just don't really think it's as good as the first one, but you watch it because it's a part of the series. And this movie is quite entertaining, if I'm honest. I didn't think anything bad about it. Like I say, the print on here is spectacular as well. It just looks and sounds amazing. I will be doing a more in-depth of these movies, the Halloween movies, on a separate video. So that's Halloween 4. Next I watched Halloween 5. Now this was one that I definitely think I had never seen before, and I was expecting it to be the lowest of the bunch out there. And it's not the best one, but I still really enjoyed it. I think there's enough in here to make this movie enjoyable, and I'm excited to see part 6 as well. I'm thinking part 6 is going to be out the end of this year, and I do think that they're going to have the producer's cut in as well. I've never seen it, so this is going to be, all the next ones are going to be first time watches for me. I think after Halloween 3, back in the day, I did really drop away from Halloween in a big way, but I'm really looking forward to getting back into this series, because really in the UK, as you know, it's really hard to get them all in one go. So that's why they need a UK box set. But anyway, I will say that these ones here are the definitive one. And also a big shout out to my good friend Alan Scouser, link down below to his channel. I won a competition, and the money I got from that I put towards this, and I was able to secure this. So I am going to do a separate video on all of these Halloween movies. So that's Halloween 5. And thanks once again, Alan. So next up we watched Free Guy. Now this movie was on Amazon Prime, I think. And I thought it was absolutely brilliant, and Deborah really enjoyed it as well. I will be getting the 4K sometimes when it comes down in a sale. And it was just such a great, entertaining movie. I think Ryan Reynolds is that type of person that we just like him. We like him in all the movies he's done. I find him very entertaining. I just like the way he goes on. I like the things that he does. This movie, I think, was very interesting, actually, the fact that it was kind of a computer game. He was in this computer game as a sort of the person who played in the computer game. I think it was just a really good spin on that. And the movie was dead funny. And me and Deborah, like I say, was trying to hunt out the latest Ryan Reynolds movie. We're a big fan of his, so highly recommended if you like his sort of humour and the way he does deliver these sort of like this character. He seems to have this sort of Ryan Reynolds character all the way through these movies, and we like that actually. So that's Free Guy. So next up, another movie that I got off my good friend John Hall. It is the Bermuda. So next up was another movie I got off my good friend John Hall. It is the Bermuda Jet. Hey. Next up is a movie that I got off my good friend John Hall, and it is the Bermuda. Next up is a movie I got off my good friend John Hall. It is the Bermuda Depths. Wow. This movie looks spectacular. This is the best looking Blu Ray I have ever seen in my life. It is just absolutely jaw-dropping. And for me, it's a TV movie. It's a strange movie as well. I didn't really know what to expect with it because I didn't really know which way this was going. It's got a very strange story, but it's very, very recommended, highly recommended by me. Also, it's it's region free, I believe, because I put on my 4K play, which made it look even better. You get like a square frame one for obviously the TV. I think that's the way it was shot. That's the way I watched it actually, because when you watch it on the blown up to fill the screen like widescreen, you do lose a little bit of quality and a little bit of top and bottom picture. So always try and pick the proper aspect ratio it's in, and I wasn't disappointed with it. This movie has it's such a strange story. The sort of short story is that this fella here, when he was younger, he saw this girl on the beach, and they rescued a tortoise, and they are sea tortoise, and what they are a turtle. These they put a marking on its back. They painted their initials on the back of this turtle, and set it free. So years later, he sees this girl who was somebody like kind of like a mermaid, who can kind of control this this massive turtle now, because the turtle for some reason has grown to a gargantuan size. And you've got Carl Weathers in it as well, who is somebody who charters a boat to take these two out, or this fella out, to try and see what they can capture this. So yeah, wow, I don't know how anybody could think of that story, but really highly recommended. And I've got to say, without a shadow of a doubt, this is the best looking Blu-ray you will ever see. It's definitely the best looking Blu-ray I've got in my collection. So thanks once again to John Hall. That's Bermuda Triangle. I said it right this time. So next up, me and my son went to watch Spider-Man, and we were just blown away by this movie. My son, who is 25 now, he was kind of making noises and sort of whooping and shouting at certain parts in this movie. And I'm not going to spoil this movie at all. If someone hasn't seen this movie, it's great that you can go in here with like zero knowledge of it, because you'll get the same effect that me and my son did. It was one of the best experiences I had in the cinema for a long time. It's such a good movie. This is definitely my favourite movie of 2021. Can't wait to get this on 4K, and it's like it's coming out soon. So yes, so we had such a good time, and I can't believe that my 25-year-old son was acting like maybe like a 10-year-old. Speaking of my son as a 10-year-old,
there's John with his big nose. My God. Bright on his head. Look at it. It's like the moon. Put himself at the back.
So yeah, he didn't get no pocket money for a week after that one. So Spider-Man No Way Home, absolutely brilliant, highly recommended. Can't wait to get it on physical media. It's the best Spider-Man movie I've ever seen, and I do really like the Spider-Man movies. And I'm really interested to see how they're going to top this movie, because I don't know where they're going to go from this one. But such a good watch, and I can't wait to get it in physical media. That's Spider-Man No Way Home. Next up, I watched The Guest. Now this is the Second Sight Special Edition, and it looks absolutely spectacular. The whole presentation on here is just stunning, as it always is with Second Sight Special Editions. This weighs a ton. I didn't know anything about this movie. I'm not going to really say anything about this movie, just to say that this movie is highly watchable. I think this is a spectacular release if you can get it. It's coming down in price. It was 50 quid, but it's kind of dropping at the minute, which is good, because I don't think any release is really worth 50 quid, although I've got to admit this is one of the nicest booklets you'll ever see. But still, 50 quid, wow. But I had such a great time with this movie, and I think me and a lot of people in my comments have talked about the fact that this fella here would make a great James Bond. He's got this kind of really good way about him. He's a British actor as well, and I think he should be in the contention for it, because really he's not super well known, which is great for James Bond. You don't want to get somebody who's like massively well known, because I think that spoils it a bit. You want to get someone slightly under the radar, but you've heard of them. So I do think he would make a good James Bond, and I was thinking that when I saw him on the extras when he was talking about this movie. I didn't realise he was an English actor as well, because he does play the American part really well. But this is a really good movie, very violent in some places as well. But it's got some great performances from this fella and also this girl here. And it's one of those movies that, if you know about it, you know about it. I didn't know anything about it. I took a bit of a gamble on it, but I got it for £40 instead of £50, so that's why I went for it. But highly, highly recommended. It's such a good movie. That's The Guest. So next up, I watched They Live. Now, I had a funny relationship with They Live, and due to watching a video from Mike Woods, I'll leave a link down to his channel down below. he was talking about They Live, and he put it in a sort of new light with us, and I thought, well, I'm just going to give it one more chance, because all the other times I've watched it, I've always felt a little bit, I don't know if I really like this movie. I didn't like the way that it kind of went into sort of, the first half was quite serious, the second half was quite comedic, and I didn't like that change in tones. But on a rewatch on this 4K, which looks absolutely spectacular, I did get it, and I do think that this movie on like that watch really connected with me, and I think it's a great watch. And I want to thank Mike Woods for actually making me, because I was willing to just let this one go and think, well, I've got it on Blu Ray and that's the way it's going to stay. I'm so glad I got it on the 4K, because it does look really spectacular. Soundtrack in here is brilliant as well. And as with every as with every John Carpenter movie, it looks, that's his brother James Carpenter, you know. He does a spectacular looking movie, and I was really pleased to get this on 4K actually, because I think, to be honest, I think I'm going to get all of my favourite John Carpenter movies on 4K. So that's They Live. Speaking of John Carpenter, next up I watched The Fog. Now this is my favourite John Carpenter movie. I just think this is just perfection. Now I went to see this at the cinema, and I saw it 4 times in 1 week, because on the Monday I went in cheap, you can get in there, and because it was so good, I said I've got to see this, and I just went for the full week. I've done that plenty of times in movies, but this is one of the first ones where I just thought this is just it just really connected with me. I had such a great time with it. The 4K on here, I think it looks spectacular, and I always have a great time with this movie. The fact is, it's not the goriest of movies, and it's not like maybe some people don't say it's a more suspenseful of John Carpenter movies. Just for some reason, I think it's a nostalgia trip as well. I just think this is just a really good, well put together movie, and I just like everything about it. So that's The Fog. Next up, me and my wife watched Armour of God. Now, this is a movie that I knew as soon as I got it, I would have to get Deborah to watch it with us, because she's a big fan of these martial art things, and this one's got some great choreography from Jackie Chan. Some great stunts. As you know, this was when Jackie Chan was, for me, at his height in the middle of the 80s, and he was just putting together these amazing movies which had death-defying stunts in it. This was the one was famous because he actually nearly killed himself in the movie. He landed on he landed on his head, and something went into his head. It was a tree branch, I think, and it pierced his skull. So wow, wasn't he so really lucky to get away with that one? But it didn't stop him. He still went crazy on his movies after this, breaking his legs and doing it with his plaster cast with a sand shoe tied to it, so it wouldn't look like he had a broken leg. So this is Jackie Chan all over. But this is one of my favourite Jackie Chan movies. Deborah had a great time with it as well. Can't wait to watch Armour of God 2. So pleased to get this amazing special edition from 88 Films, as they always do. They just released the best versions of those Jackie Chan movies you could ever hope to get. So that's the Armour of God. So next up, me and the Debs went to the cinema and we watched Spider-Man. She did get the film, although there's certain ones where she said, well, who's this, who's that? And I had to sort of explain to her to say, well, look, what you're seeing is a sort of multiverse and things like that. So she got it in the end, and she did say that it was a great film. And so pleased to get to see Spider-Man in the movies. We have always seen all the Spider-Man movies, me and Deborah, on the big screen, and we will go and see all of them because we're a big fan of these Marvel ones, the big Marvel ones. My favourite movie of 2021, like I said. So next up, as you know, I started getting interested in the video nasties, and I thought to myself, since there's like some great films coming out in 2022, I think I better start watching a few of these. So the first one I picked up was Axe. Now this one is it's a short film. This one is kind of like it's a good version actually. It's DVD. I do know there's Blu-rays out there, but I do want to sort of think that at this stage, 88 or Arrow might start to pick a few of these ones up. So this will do me for now. I've always liked Axe. I think it's a great little film. I think it was banned probably because of the fact that there's an axe used in it. I think when these movies were they had implements that you could get in the household and you were putting them into a movie, I think they used to cut them ones out or just get rid of them because they were thinking that people were going to get a hold of an axe and kill people. But of course it didn't happen, but there you go. So this movie isn't that violent actually, and I think it's just because it was an axe involved, an axe in the title. I think that's why it fell foul of the censors. And you find in a lot of these movies, you think, why on earth was this banned? But I think this one could be, with a nice presentation, it could be a really good one for them to release. So that's Axe. Next up, I watched another banned video nasty. It is Anthropophagus, the Beast. This is the one that was released again by 88 Films, and it is like a 2K remastered one, so it's a better picture than the one that was released before this. And this, I've got to admit, I love this movie. A lot of people don't like it. They think it's a bit of a slow movie. I don't think it's slow at all. They think it's not that gory. I do think it's quite gory, actually. There's a lot more gore in it than you would imagine. And the scene it was famous for is, or infamous for, is quite brutal in what it portrays. So I just think this is a spectacular movie. I just love this whole presentation of this package as well. Now, there's a channel called Double Bill Movies, which I'll put a link down below, and he talks about a lot at length about stuff like this. I know he was kind of one of the people who put into this Indiegogo scheme, and he actually, Trevor Eris, he's actually on the credits for this movie. There's a kind of roll on here which tells all the people who put into this movie. And I'm sure there's a couple of people I actually know or speak to that did do that as well. So big shout out to Trevor Eris. Double Bill Movies, link down below to his channel. And he talks at length about movies like this, and he goes into quite a lot of detail about it. And what he is a fan of, which I suppose I am as well, is the fact that some of these movies, when they're redone, it's nice to have them not particularly 100% looking perfect. It's nice to have a little bit of grubbiness about them as well, because some of these movies like Axe looks really grubby. So I think you should also get a version on these discs where you could watch the chance to watch, if you want to, like a sort of lower quality VHS edition, kind of one that hasn't got the scratches taken out, if you're into that type of thing. So anyway, so yeah, so that's one of my favourite video nasties. That's Anthropophagus, the Beast. Next up, I watched on 4K Maniac Cop 2. I remember when I first saw this, I wasn't too impressed with it actually, and I think it was like I was wanting a lot more of Maniac Cop 1. It kind of strays away from that. I think the director said that he didn't really want to remake Maniac Cop. So when I saw it, I wasn't really that impressed by it. But going back to it and just thinking, right, I think when you go back to these movies as a like grown-up adult, as opposed to watching these as a kid and wanting to sort of what kids want, they want more of the same. You're willing to sort of look at these movies in a fresh light. The picture quality on here, as always with Blue Underground, looks absolutely spectacular. Always think that when you go for a 4K with Blue Underground, yes, they're a bit more expensive. Try to get them on release if you can, and then you can get them as cheap as you can. These ones will not be surpassed. I don't imagine anybody can release a better looking 4K than Blue Underground. So that's a big shout out to them. And this movie, I had a great time with it. I will be getting Maniac Cop 3 as well, just to complete the collection. But after watching Maniac Cop 2 and thinking, well, I don't know if I like this one, I really enjoyed it. So I think that I'll probably enjoy Maniac Cop 3 as well. So that's Maniac Cop 2. Next up, I watched Malignant. Now, this was a movie that had been talked about a lot. My good friend Jason Brett, linked down to his channel below, he talks about this all the time, said it's his favourite movie, and I've heard that talked about. A lot of people have said it's the favourite movie of 2021. And I've got to say, as horror movies go, it's a really good movie. It's a one that I hadn't really seen this type of movie before, in a way, and it was refreshing to get one that you thought, this is a bit of a change in tack to something you've seen it 1,000 times before. And I will be watching this one again, because when I watched it and I did sort of see things, and I thought, I'll have to go back and just double check that, because it's one of those movies when you watch it and then you get the sort of the way it goes, you think, I'll have to go back and watch this again, because you might see it in a different light, or different things might jump out at you. And yeah, so, and I don't know if I mentioned this before, but there's a scene in here where there's a jump scare in here, which isn't really like a jump scare. It's not a horror jump scare, but it's a jump scare that, well, obviously it makes you jump because you weren't expecting it, and it's one of the best ones I've had in a long time. So yeah, wow, that was something that I was really, sometimes you get a jump scare and you're like, but when you get the long jump scare where you're kind of sitting there and you're thinking, and you take a couple of seconds to calm down from it, that's the kind of jump scares that I like. So that's it's highly recommended actually, and I'm so glad I got it with a slip as well. Obviously, I would prefer it in 4K, but this Blu-ray looks really good as well. So that's Malignant. So last up in December 2021, I watched Absurd. Now this is the sort of unofficial sequel to Anthropophagus the Beast. It's kind of the same movie, but it's in a different setting. It's not set at the beach like Anthropophagus is. It's set more in a sort of village, I think. It's a bit hard to describe. It's this fella who is kind of indestructible in a way, and a bit like anthropophagus was. It doesn't really go into too much explanations about why that is, but this movie is very violent compared to anthropophagus is violent at times. This one is really brutal. It's got some really good gore effects in it, and I do think the transfer in here looks absolutely spectacular. I was always expecting that this one would look poor because it's never looked good on VHS. When I saw it on VHS or a copy on VHS, you could hardly see what was going on. But this one here is it's highly recommended. Actually, it's another one that a lot of people don't really talk about. It was one of those ones that was very hard to get on VHS. And I imagine the VHS copy, if you go and buy it, would go for a lot of money. I'm not going to collect a VHS of these because it's far too much money. I'd rather put that into a disc and I can watch that, all the time. I would have to hook up my video player if I wanted to watch that, and I'm not really interested in watching VHS. Although, if they put a VHS version of it on the disc, I would definitely check that out as well once, down the road. So, another highly recommended video nasty. So, okay, so let's get on to January 2022. So, first up, I watched A Bay of Blood. This is a Mario Bava film, and this is released by Arrow kind of back in the day, so I would love them to get a little bit of, if they're going to do a 4K remaster of movies, I would love them to get these ones that have been sort of put out a good 10 years ago. This movie is basically like Friday the 13th has copied this movie to a certain extent, and it's quite gory as well, quite bloodthirsty, especially for 1971. I think this movie looks spectacular. You always get a good looking movie from Mario Bava, you know that for without a shadow of a doubt. And it's also it's quite funny as well. I didn't really get the humour in it till I watched it this time around, and I think it's so funny that all these people seem to be dying at this resort, for want of a better word. So very good and very obviously Mario Bava, one of his best films for me. And yes, it was on the Video Nasties list. I think it was just put on there because of the amount of deaths that was in it. So that's one that I had to get when it came out, and I'm so glad I got it. I do think it needs a bit of a remaster from somebody. That's A Bay of Blood. Next up, we watched Hitman's Wife's Bodyguard. Now, we'd watched the first one. We had a great time with it. We thought it was a really good, funny film. And this one here, we were thinking, it's probably not going to be as good as it was. The other one was. But I tell you what, we had a really good time with this movie. I think the one that stood out for us in this one was Salma Hayek with her sort of obscene language throughout the whole film, which was one of the best parts for me. I just think that she was stunning in this movie. And I can't wait. I hope they do another movie because I will get these two on 4K when they come down in price, because I have seen them but haven't been at the right price yet. But I just think they're such a good watch, and it's got everything going for me. I think the story progresses in a certain way. I know there's a lot of people that say it's not that great, but for fun purposes, I think that me and Deborah had a really good time with it, and I'll definitely be watching these again. So that's The Hitman's Wife's Bodyguard. Next up, I watched Don't Look in the Basement. This is a previously banned video nasty, and this release is fully uncut. It's not the best of qualities. The film itself is very, very low budget. I didn't expect it to look great. I do think that this would be great for 88 or Arrow to pick up, because I think this movie is such an enjoyable movie. I had such a great time with it. I was expecting it to be not that great, but the whole thing about this place that looks after people with disorders or problems, and they are allowed to just react and just do whatever they want to do, which what the man who opened the place up has said, this is what we're going to have in this place. But so how do you think that went? It couldn't have went any worse. But I do think that this movie is a movie that needs to come out in a better version. It's very underlooked, I think, just because it's probably languishing on the shelves and it hasn't got much love and attention. But I would like to see this one coming out in a much better form. And I had a great time with it. That's Don't Look in the Basement. Next up, I watched Gestapo's Last Orgy. Now, this one is cheap as anything. You can imagine this movie costing about $50 to make. This one has got very high budget and production value on it. It looks spectacular, and it's actually got a great soundtrack as well. But wow, this movie is not what you could say for the faint-hearted. It's got some really over-the-top and quite unsettling things in it, and things that really, I thought, usually when I watch these movies, especially these Nazi exploitation movies, I find them quite fun in a strange way. But this movie wasn't fun. Usually you can get a bit of a laugh out of them, like you can with The Beast in the Heat. or you can just say that it's got like a stupid storyline like SS Experiment Camp. But this one here is just a nasty film per se, and it's got a lot of stuff where you think, wow, I don't understand why they would put that in the movie. Obviously for shock value, but there's shock value, and then there's other things that they put in. But the whole dinner scene in this movie is just one of the sort of like the strangest and like worst things I've seen in my life. And the fact is that all these Nazis are enjoying what's happening in this time, and they're sort of getting the kicks from it, which is just bizarre. So yeah, it's not for everybody. It's not one I'll be visiting a lot of times, but I can certainly say it's one of the best looking nasties that you'll ever see for picture quality, and just the way that it's sort of done. It's actually quite. It looks like a professional film with some just really bad stuff in it. So that's Gestapo's Last Orgy. Next up, me and Deborah watched A Quiet Place. Now, I've been after her for a while to watch this, and she said she would, and then she says, "Oh, I never said that." And I said, "No, I think you did." So we watched it, and she admitted that it was a great film. Although she got some shocks at times, because there was a few jumps in this. But I can't wait to watch A Quiet Place too. So we are going to watch that one. I've got it on Sky Movies downloaded, and I will get these on 4K, because even the Blu Ray looks nice on this. So I'm going to get 4Ks of them probably when the whole lot come out. I'm sure there's going to be 3 at the end of the day. So yeah, so I had a good time with that. I would imagine most people have seen this movie, and I haven't heard anybody say that they didn't really like it. So that's one that's quite highly recommended actually. That's A Quiet Place. Next up is Bloody Moon. This is a previously banned video nasty, and it's made by Jess Franco. So you might think, wow, it's got to be rubbish. Well, actually, it's quite good for Jess Franco. There's a few strange sort of tropes in it that Jess Franco puts in his movies, but for a movie that is production value, that actually looks really nice as well, which I was quite surprised about. Probably one of the best looking Jess Franco movies I've seen. There is some air of stupidity in it, but as a go, it's quite a decent movie. It's quite giallo in a way, more like a slasher. And yeah, it's got some interesting sort of twists in it, much more than Jess Franco usually puts in his movies. And it's not a bad movie actually. It's probably one of my favourite Jess Franco movies. That's Bloody Moon. Next up is my recommendation for best movie I watched in January 2022. It is The Burning. I remember watching this a lot of times on VHS and having a great time with it, and thinking that I couldn't wait to get it on Blu-ray. When it came on Blu-ray, for some reason, I put it on the shelf and I never watched it. I don't know why, I just didn't go back to it. And when I went back to it, when I was watching all these video nasties in alphabetical order, I thought, I bet I don't like it as much. It may be one of these movies where you loved when you were a kid, and then when you grow up and you look at it, fresh eyes, and you see the production value in it, and you think, what did I even find interesting about this movie? But I've got to say, this movie delivered like much more than I thought it was going to do. And I must admit, I'd forgotten most of the movie because I hadn't watched it in that length of time, probably since the VHS days. I don't think I ever had this on DVD. I know it was a very hard one to get a hold of. So, and I've had this on the shelf for a long time. Just really baffled why I didn't go back to it and watch it. It's just the way it worked out. But for me, this is like quintessential slasher movie from the early 80s. And it looks spectacular as well. And I just had such a great time with it. I just think that this movie blew me away in a way that I thought, well, I think it's all right, but I just think it's just an absolutely great horror film. To be honest, I can't wait to watch it again. So that's highly recommended. That's my movie of this month. That is The Burning. Next up from 88 Films is Steel Arena. This movie here, it's a funny one. I've seen it on the shelves, and I did want to get it because I just liked the way it looked, and this whole... It's just a spectacular looking release. He doesn't seem the person who would be like a leading man actually, but this travelling group of stuntmen go to every town, and it follows their exploits across the sort of America, and it's quite interesting actually. But it doesn't really seem to have much of a point, if I'm honest. But I don't really mind that. It's more just about, let's see how many cars we can smash up. I don't know, for some reason, like I say, I'm really getting into these exploitation movies, and I'm willing to forgive most of them for their sort of their sins in a way, to say that they're not the best of movies, but for what they are quite enjoyable. And to be honest, halfway through I was thinking, is this movie going anywhere? And it did come good at the end, and it does star the great named Dusty Russell as well. So yeah, if you can get it cheap, I highly recommend it. So that's Steel Arena. Next up is a movie that I bought off my good friend John Hall, and it is Phantasm. And it's got Phantasm 2 on here. This is the corrected disc version. John made sure that the corrected discs were in here, and the 4K remastered Blu-ray on part 2 looks sensational. And also part 1 isn't a remastered 4K remastered, but it's got a really good remaster on it. And I love Phantasm. It's a strange movie. I've always said that it's one that you can't really describe. It gets a bit odd in its sort of fantasy world, but I do think that this movie is a very, very good watch. And this presentation of these movies, I don't even know they're going to go any further with it. This is from Well Go USA Entertainment, and they're quite a good label, and I do find that I've got quite a few of theirs ones, especially martial arts movies. So I do recommend Phantasm, previously banned Video Nasty. I don't really know why it was banned. Probably because of the ball that goes around and smashing into people's heads, and drilling, which is a great effect. I always loved that one. It's one of my favourite things when we were kids watching stuff. Has anyone seen the ball in Phantasm we used to talk about? So yeah, so thanks once again for John for selling this to me. This is a great version, and I would like to get the rest of them, but I'm not going to get the Arrow box set because obviously I'll duplicate a few things, so I'll have to see how that happens down the line. So that's Phantasm. Next up we watched Nobody. We had a great time with this movie. Yeah, it's quite violent. It's got some great set pieces. There's some great fighting in here. The fact is that this guy here looks like he kind of fight his way out of a wet paper bag, but he's got some real good skills because he's been trained in the army. And the people who sort of he goes to war with, they don't know anything about that. But he doesn't let up, and he's relentless when he sets away to sort of has fights with people, or he's going to do what he's going to do in this movie. So how he's going to get his sort of revenge on somebody. But this is a great movie, and I can't wait to see if they do any more sequels. I think they are going to, and if it goes into the universe of John Wick as well, I think that'd be great if these two could sort of do a joint movie in a sort of way. So that's what a really good time with it. It's highly recommended. I will be getting the 4K of it. I know that Keith from Euphoria Pictures said the 4K of it isn't that much of an upgrade, but I can see the 4K of it. I haven't got this movie anyway, and I can see the 4K of it coming down in price. So at a cheap price, I would pick that up probably. So that's Nobody. Next up, I started watching the Mary Middleton box set. Now, I'm going to do a proper video on this one, so I'm not going to talk too much about it. Having a great time with these movies. I think I've watched practically all of them now. They're different, let's say that, and I think that the thing I'm learning about Mary Middleton is she's got a bit of a sad life, if I'm honest, and it's a bit of a shame what's happened to her. And to be honest, I do feel quite sorry for Mary, because she was only trying to do one thing, become famous, and it kind of really spectacularly all went wrong for her. So yeah, so wow. But anyway, this box set from Screenbound is absolutely brilliant and highly recommended. It's got an amazing booklet in here, and the films itself are, I could say, they look absolutely stunning in quality. The films themselves are varying in quality for actually the way you watch them. You think, wow, they've made a film about this. But anyway, I wonder if they'll ever do, because there is more Mary Middleton movies out there. Now, I would like to think that they would do the other ones. Maybe in the future they might do that. But I'll do a dedicated video on this, and I'll tell you exactly what I thought about the movies I've watched in here. So that's the Mary Middleton movie collection. Next up, I watched another exploitational gem. It is Truck Stop Women. This is made by the same director who made Steel Arena. And yes, it's kind of like more of the same, although this is a bit more adult than the other one. And it's just a sort of road movie where these girls, they go and pick people up, these truckers pick them up, and they get rid of the truckers, kill them obviously, as you do, and then they take the truck away and they sell it what's in the truck, and they just do that through the movie. The movie is very enjoyable actually. I do think that these sort of really odd, obscure movies that I never knew existed. I didn't even know this director directed anything, and they put out in this exploitational, eye-catching covers. I just think that they appeal to me. Sometimes I'd rather watch one of these than a big blockbuster. I used to always be like that. That's why you see a lot of my movies in here that aren't blockbusters at all. I've sort of got more into blockbusters, you know, with having my son, and then my wife likes the sort of the big movies. But for me, I'll always come back to these low budget movies. That's kind of like my jam, if you like. But I just like the way that these are presented. So that's Truck Stop Women. So the last movie I watched in January was Effects. This is from 101 Films. It's in this glorious AGFA sort of subsidiary line. There's no numbers on it, although you can tell from this is the first one. This is 01, and then there's another 3 come out recently. There's more coming out, and I think they're going to start releasing these ones all the time. I do like the fact that these are ultra low budgets, never heard of them, and they look, well, they look like trash, if I'm honest. But for some reason, I'm all right with that. This sort of grubbiness really sort of works for these movies. There's no way they could have cleaned this up better than it was. It's probably been, it was long thought lost. I didn't have a clue that this movie existed. It didn't blow us away, I've got to admit, but I do need to watch it again because I fell asleep halfway through and I kind of missed a bit of the storyline. And when I woke up, I saw the end and I thought, oh, so that's what it was all about. I'll have to go back and watch it properly because the movie was entertaining in a way. I'm not going to say it was totally non-entertaining, but I think the fact it was so low budget, I was quite surprised to see the likes of Joe Pilato and also Tom Savini in something that was really like a college-made movie, and some of the actors in here cannot act to save their lives. But I'm going to give it a second chance because I will keep this one because I do like this range. So I'm looking forward to picking up all the other ones that this AGFA release with 101 Films put out. Okay, so thanks for watching this video. Hope it wasn't too long. The rough cut is about an hour, and I hope to God it's not an hour for you. Okay, so thanks for watching. You take care, and I'll see you on the next video. Cheers.